Yes, once again, revolutionary greetings, comrade. Welcome to Conscious and Study Group. It's a pleasure to have you again today. This is our Africa Unification conversation every Saturday, where we do a conversation and have discussion around the unification of Africa. Of course, today we'll be getting updates from across the continent, as we have actually get some update in regards to Kenya aspect on one of our comrade Julius Kamau, whom I'll allow a few people maybe to ask some one or two questions as we move forward. Then we go to different countries where there's any update. Feel free to raise your hand and let us know if you have any updates so that we can reach out to you and get updates from your side. After our updates, we'll go straight to our conversation today in regards to Kazan declaration. Our chair, Brother Christian Com, will be joining us shortly so that he joins the conversation together. So once again, full most welcome. It's a pleasure to have you around. Let's get straight to any conversation in regards to, first of all, updates in your country that are related to unification or any news you've come across that relates to the unification of us as a people. Just feel free to raise your hand. But as I've said, there was an update in regards to Kenya, one of young comrade who has been actually pushing for the unification, liberation of Africa and Kenya at large. And they have suffered so much in the hands of the police brutality, being arrested almost 60 times in 1 year. And he's a very good friend of ours. I was, as I've said, in court to see him in police station. And one of the comrades that he has been arrested with is here with us, Comrade Selel Mankuyo, who has actually been a regular also protester in this country. So yes, feel most welcome. Comrade Selel, anything you have to say again in regards to Julius or the protest you're taking in Kenya in 1 or 2 minutes, then you get to other countries. So welcome all the members who have been with us here. We see you, Brother Carrington, who joined us all along. We see you, Brother The King. We appreciate you, Brother Kwame Gonza. We see Sister Shada with us. Ambassador Jasmine Roy, Sister Tapua, Sister Chisomo, Sister Aida, Gatloa, General Minaki, Brother Kama, and all other comrades with us today. You're most welcome and know that we appreciate your presence. Yashon, Tafari, and Sawindok. Yes, Brother Selen Mankuyo.
Yeah, greetings again, everybody. I greet you in the name of Africa and I greet you in the name of our ancestors. I'm Sailel Manguyo and I'm from Kenya. Odumwengu is a great friend of mine. I've been with him severally, even in the street. Odumwengu, I've been with you in the street even in the last election. And even there before last election, I think you remember the time that we were also planning for a protest against the high cost of living and also the 2023 financial year. I think you were the first people to organize for a protest that was against or anti finance bill 2023 or budget with Comrade Ture and Comrade Kamau as well. So as you can hear, I am one of the people who have been arrested. There's even a very clear, I've been arrested severally in the street of Nairobi. We have been tortured because I think everybody knows that I think even in the US or even anywhere in the world. But I think in Africa, police brutality is worse than other countries because when you get arrested, they can just throw you on a lorry or on a police vehicle, like something that is not that is something that is like not living, or something that doesn't want to live, or you're not a human being. So they can't handle you. They can't handle you the way that a human being or a living thing can be handled. So basically, I've been with Comrade Kamau even last time, around 3 days ago. He was arrested. He was arrested on Monday. Then he went, then released on Monday as well. At the same, and also on Tuesday, he was arrested. He went to court and win a case and he won a case that he was being charged against the disruption and rebellion, because they call it here in Kenya, they call it disruption, or they call it they call it a disturbance in a manner that will breach peace or violence. That's and it's against the penal code that they usually used to charge us, penal code 95 of the Kenya Constitution. So basically, he was arrested on Monday. Then on Tuesday, he was released on the same Monday. Then on Tuesday, he went to protest. He went to court and won a case. Then on the same day, very day, he went to High Court here in Kenya. We call it Milimani High Court, and that's where he got arrested. So he was taken to a certain police station that is close to Milimani Law Court. That's a high court in Kenya. He went there. He was detained for 24 hours. Comrade Pigjin and other comrades came. and also several lawyers from the different organizations, like from the Kenya Law Society of Kenya and also from Kenya Human Rights. They also came, but the police refused to release him adamantly. They also refused to take him to court. So the lawyers were even thinking of writing habeas corpus to the court so that the comrade can be produced anywhere, dead or alive. But we knew that he was in the police cell. So basically, we were there. We camped with the Pocobre pigeon. Pigeon came. We camped until the comrade was released, but after 24 hours. And the laws and the Constitution of Kenya stated clearly that nobody should be held. Nobody is supposed to be held in more than 24 hours. He should be produced. He should produce to court before 24 hours ends. But for them, they called him incommunicado for 26 good hours. We were just counting because we had a video when he was being arrested. So basically, I can say that he has been injured, brutally injured, because there are some popular videos. If you go online on YouTube and search Julius Kamau, you can see how, because even the media, local media, have been always following, and even international media following what he has been doing in the street. So basically, a lot of videos are there, and you can see how he has been totally, or how he has been a police brutality victim. Okay. So to make the matter worse, the perpetrators has been never arrested or been charged in court. So maybe as the time goes, maybe I can talk with him so that he can come and talk with you what he has been seeing, or what he has been, the way that he has been tortured, or what he has been fighting for.
Okay, thank you, Comrade Mankuya. Of course, as I've said, this is an upcoming event and conversation that I wish we will organize for a session, Brother Mankuya. I will talk with Brother Julius, so that we can also check the life of those who put their life in danger in the street to fight for our country. So that is what we'll take for now. We'll not have a conversation in regards to that, but we'll go organize a session to discuss that, and probably invite Julius Kamau to be part of this conversation so that we can hear what goes on in regards to his livelihood and the struggle in this country, Kenya. So today, as it has been actually notified and I have actually stated, our discussion and our center point for today is about the recent Kazan declaration. There was a meeting, of course, of Brics, and this document I'm holding here, or the document I'm sharing with you, is actually a declaration of the resolutions of the meeting that was made, or what we came up with in regards to Kazan declaration. Just as to see it up here, the event or the meeting or the resolution was actually drafted on 23rd October 2024 in Kazan, and the main purpose of that conversation, as the title of this document is, strengthening multilateralism, or for just global development and security. Of course, as I've said, this is a declaration that was sent by the members of the Brics who attended the meeting, and part of the declaration, there are over 120-something resolutions that were passed here. But our interest for the conversation today touch on the resolution 38, 39, and 40, and subsequently 41, which actually touch directly on Africa. Somebody might ask, why do we discuss what took place in Brics? It's not that sometimes we're interested in Brics, but ours is to discuss and check on what they speak about us, and how can we unitedly form a way on how we can respond, or even monitor some of the resolutions or declaration or the promises these so-called meetings make in behalf of Africa. So that's why we have a meeting today. What I'll do basically is to go through the declarations as a startup, read all the declarations as they were attached here, from Declaration 1, Declaration 2, 3, and 4, which is 38, 39, 40, and 41. After that, I'll open up the audio or the forum for members to share their thinking and what do they feel in regards to this, and what do they think that must be done in order for us to see whatever they commit to is actually actualized. As you know, that Brics also taking place of African countries like South Africa, who is a member there, and there are also countries who are actually admitted as partner states. I think some information will be shared, and I'll try to look for those states that were put as partner states. So once again, feel most welcome to this conversation. So permit me to read the declarations, then I'll open up the floor for members to share their thinking, and we have a discussion and see what's the way forward as a resolution out of this conversation. So this Resolution 38 or Resolution 38 states that we in this case are those BRIC members, reiterate that the principal African solution to African problem should continue to serve as the basis for conflict resolution on the African continent. In this regard, we recognize the critical role of African Union in the prevention, management, and resolution of conflict in Africa. We reaffirm our support for African peace effort on the continent, including those undertaken by the African Union and African sub-regional organizations in line with the principle of African ownership, complementarity, and subsidiarity. Resolution 39. We commend the efforts and achievement by African countries in their pursuit of the peace and development and to combat the growing surge of terrorism in Africa, particularly in the Horn of Africa and the Sahel, and call for the channeling of more global counter-terrorism resources to developing countries to help African countries, particularly those affected, enhance their counter-terrorism capacity building. We commend efforts undertaken by African countries, the African Union, African sub-regional organization, and the United Nations in promoting peace processes in Southern Sudan, stabilizing the situation in the Central African Republic, as well as success of government of Mozambique, supported by the Southern African Development Community in counterreaction to the terrorist threat in north of the country. 40. We express great concerns over the escalating violence and humanitarian crisis in Sudan, and we reiterate our call for an immediate, permanent, and unconditional ceasefire and peaceful resolution of the conflict with engagement in peace talks as the only way to end this conflict. Sustain urgent and unimpeded access of the Sudanese people to humanitarian assistance and the scaling up of humanitarian assistance to Sudan and neighboring states. We condemn the attack on the residence of the head of missions of United Arab Emirates Embassy by Sudan on 29 September 2024, causing extensive damage to the premises located in a residential area in Khartoum. We stress fundamental principle of the inviolability of diplomatic and consular premises and the obligation on receiving states, including under the 1961 Vienna Convention on Diplomatic Relations and the 1963 Vienna Convention on Consular Resolution. Resolution 41 talks about Haiti getting away of Africa, but of interest to us, because Haiti and us is one. We deplore the brutal gang attack in Port Sunday in Haiti, which resulted in the death of the forced displacement of civilians, and expressed deep concerns over the ongoing deterioration of the security, humanitarian, and economic situation in Haiti. We commend the establishment of Haiti Transitional Presidential Council and that the current crisis, creation of an election council, are an essential step to solve the current crisis. We stress that the current crisis requires a Haitian-led solution that encompasses national and inclusive dialogue and consensus building among local political forces, institutions, and the society, and call on the international community to support the interim government's endeavor to dismantle the gang, enhance the security situation, and put in place the endeavors to do so, and put in place the foundations for long-lasting social and economic development in the country and hold general election by the end of 2025. We support the role of the United Nations in providing humanitarian assistance and highlight the need for international cooperation to address Haiti multifaceted crisis effectively. Comrades, these are the resolutions of Kazan Declaration on their commitment. I'll open the floor and ask you, what do you think, what do you feel, and what do you think must be done or should be done in regards to this? What's your feeling in regards to these resolutions? And what do you think must be done? I'll be going through my list, but in case you have anything to say, let me know. But before I do that, Comrade Kwame, who is the host and the chair of our class, is here. Brother Kwame, please feel free to say any opening remarks before we get to the conversation by members sharing their thinking. Welcome, Brother Kwame.
Yes, Brother Pigeon, thank you very much. Just give me a moment. Let me just sort out this, and then I'll make a few remarks. So, yeah. So, thank you. So, yeah. Yeah, so, have you started the recording already, Brother Pigeon?
Yes, he has. He has.
Our recording is in progress.
Okay, yeah, all right, thank you. So, yeah, so as Brother Pigeon has already welcomed you all, welcome everyone. As you all will know by now, the global currency for some time now has been the US dollar, and the global currency, the US dollar, so it is through a system called the SWIFT system that international payments are made. And the dollar is used as the global reserve currency, which means that we all get to trade in dollars in terms of international trade. And one of the things in its use is that the US promised, as I understand it, not to weaponize the SWIFT system or not to weaponize the dollar. Unfortunately, during the invasion of Ukraine, as it was put, the US shut out Russia from the use of the SWIFT system. And the hope was that they will cripple the economy of Russia, bring Russia to its knees, and the ultimate is to make Russia like African states, as it is right now, the Russian Federation, will be broken up as Africa has been balkanized, that Russia will be a balkanized state. So that is what happened. And then, as you all have been following the story, China and Russia started trading in their national currencies. Anyway, the backdrop then of all that is that the Brics, as a unit, have been looking at setting up a system for international payments, but there was no reason to jettison the dollar because it would have been more expensive to jettison the dollar. But because the US is, to use my language, very stupid, because when you don't think straight and you are acting on emotion, sometimes you don't think straight. They didn't think through the implication of shutting out Russia. And so the result is that Russia doesn't use a SWIFT system, but then the Brics then had to develop their own alternative system. And that is where we are. So the meeting in Kazan is very interesting because all those who, if you like, don't like the domination of America, as it were, are congregating around Brics. And the forecast is that Brics is going to be the new system, the new SWIFT, if you like. But then here is the thing. Africa is torn between US domination and what some might see as, if you like, a Brics domination. And where should we pitch our future? Should we pitch our future with a nation that, as we all know, was instrumental in the overthrow of Kwame Nkrumah, the killing of African leaders, and so on? Or should we look to a group at the heart of which are China and Russia, who have shown themselves to be our friends when we were in need? So when they met in Kazan, they came up with a statement. And so we are thinking that as Pan-Africanists, we should discuss this as a matter of urgency and priority and issue a statement on it. And so we are saying that all of us here who are interested in having our names put on that release, please let the PG know so that we do that, so that it doesn't come across as one person that has signed it, or an organization without people, kind of like a faceless organization. So I thought I should make that comment as Brother Pigeon has invited me. I am currently not in London or in elsewhere. I am in the north of England at the moment at a trade union conference. So I won't be able to stay with you for the entire 2 hours. I'll leave in about 10 to 15 minutes. So those are my comments. So please participate and share your thoughts. And as I said, if you want to be associated with the release from the Kwame Nkrumah Trust and the CSG, please let us know, and we will issue that press release, and we will share them with those of you who put your name forward. We'll share them with you to see what we are saying before we release it. Thank you very much, and please enjoy the evening. We are new things. This is the world is being transformed right in front of our eyes, dialectically speaking. Thank you.
Thank you, Brother Kwame. As I've said, we appreciate your presence despite of your busy schedule, and thank you for that opening remarks to put our class today in context. As I've said, I'll try my best, either if it's 3 or 4 minutes, to ensure that everybody in this platform at least speaks and share their thinking, what they feel about these resolutions, what they think should be done, where do they think the resolution falls, or what's the general feeling and thinking. And basically, our key aspect is, what do you think should be done? That recommendation will be very important for us, whether you put it on the text as well as you communicate it with us. So thank you very much. I'll be going through my list. And on top of my list, I see Sister Ida. Sister Ida, let me start with you. Then now, next to you, I'm seeing Brother Carrington, then Ambassador Jasmine, in that order. Take your time.
Okay. What can I say? I think that I like the fact that the Brics nation are talking about paying in your own currency, whichever country it is. At least that's my understanding. And I think that East Africa were sort of slightly trying that with payment amongst other African nations. But I don't know that I remember Sister Jasmine first telling me about this on a Sunday International, about how, I'm almost sure that she told me about it first, about people being able to pay in their own currency. And I thought that was wonderful, but I haven't heard enough of other people actually doing that and being able. So to me, the fact that Russia and China are starting something big like that is very important. Apart from that, do I know enough about what is actually happening? I think I can only leave it at that.
Sister Ida, thank you for that. But I've read the resolution that they passed, 3 or 4 of them that concern Africa. What's your take on those that are on the screen here? What do you feel about them? What do you think about them?
Well, anything that affects Africa is always, if it can work and it's not colonial, another form of colonial domination, I would support. So I've read this, and I think I've even read it more than once, but I can't say anything that actually stands up in my mind. African ownership is something that is very important to Africa. Why should all our raw materials go out and then come back in any then we have to pay more for what they've actually dug out of the ground from us. So I think that is very, very important. And yeah, and I like the fact that they are actually, that someone in outside Africa is talking about Sudan, because you hear about it, but you don't hear enough about it. So if there can be some sort of peace in Sudan, I'm all for it, because there's been so much warfare for so long. And at the end of the day, it affects people. The governments might be, they can do whatever they like, but they're affecting the people who are suffering. So I think I'll leave it to that. Thank you.
Thank you, Sister Ida. Brother Carrington, take your turn, please.
Thank you very much, everyone. I hope you're okay. I was very interested in this African solution to African problems and the enhancement, I think, in section 39 and 40, emphasizing the importance of regional bodies and the continental body in addressing continental problems and problems in the diaspora, for example, in Haiti. Now, it feels like Africa is in a situation where it needs to put out very, very many fires at the same time, especially in the central region of the continent and in the Horn of Africa. And it would need for us to strengthen rather than weaken military alliances, regional military alliances under these regional bodies, the East African Community, SADC, the Maghreb in North Africa too, and in West Africa. The Sahelian Confederation is a particular attractive example here. Banding together, contributing resources to each other to solve specific military problems and political problems. This is where Africa's only future lies. And we should use this example to strengthen the African Union, as most of you probably believe here, so that it can have an African Union standing force, which can discipline the occasional indiscipline that we see in militaries in Africa, sadly, for example, in Sudan. Now, there are challenges here if we are concentrating on African solutions to African problems. And why should we do this? We should do this because us solving problems teaches us how to solve more complicated problems. If we are able to solve the problems, the military problems that we are facing on our own, we will solve our trade problems, we will solve our migration challenges, we will get better at solving problems, at coordinating with each other to solve problems. This is why African solutions for African problems is not just a slogan. It is the most important thing that could happen to the continent in this century. But of course, there are challenges. For example, I think the issue of us surrendering geopolitical interests in each other's country is a very, very important step. I will give an example of the Horn of Africa. So Ethiopia wants access to a seaport. So its best way of getting this is by agreeing with Somalia. But Ethiopia has political problems with Somalia, or at least a region of Somalia, or the main government of Somalia. So it is underhandingly talking to a breakaway region of Somalia to get that port. Now, Somalia, because it doesn't want to be overwhelmed by the force of Ethiopia, which is considerable, it's a considerable power in the Horn of Africa and East Africa region. Somalia is now establishing closer ties with Egypt, because Egypt has problems with Ethiopia because of the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, which Egypt feels is damming the Nile, reducing the amount of water flowing into Egypt, which is a survival and existential problem also for Egypt. Now, to get its geopolitical interests protected, Egypt goes for Somalia. To get its geopolitical interests protected, Ethiopia goes for a breakaway region of Somalia. We have similar problems in Eastern Congo and Rwanda, Uganda, and Kenya. Kenya has similar problems with geopolitical interests in Somalia, at least the access to the seapost. So this problem of where we are basically also trying to influence and overwhelm each other needs to be suppressed. I don't know how it can be suppressed through us negotiating with each other, through people having a military to enforce any sort of action against anyone who would want to interfere in other regions, for example, of the continent. I don't know the specific solution here, but it is a thing that is coming up. As individual African countries become more powerful, they have a tendency of becoming more bullying, essentially, to the neighbors. So what can we do about that? How can we discipline each other without bullying each other? Yes, that's all. But I think this is a good direction to be let to carry out our own affairs. We must assert our right to carry out our own affairs. Sudan, there's evidence of international interference from the Arabian Peninsula, ironically, not from the traditional interferers, but from the Arabian Peninsula. This is a lesson to us that weakness will attract exploitation from anyone, up to and including Brics countries, Russia and China. They will exploit us as long as we are weak. So what can we do so that we are not weak? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Brother Carrington. My key concern is maybe as a follow-up to you. When the Brics commit an African solution for Africa problem, do you think they respect that? Have they not been seen either any of the country coming to Africa? In any of the, for example, Russia has been, of course, claimed or accused to be supporting the Burkina Faso military through the Wagner and the rest. In that way, do you think they go against their so-called African solution for Africa problem? And how about when they condemn the issue of detaining of Arab diplomats in Sudan, where they know how EU or United States of Arabs has been involved in the war in Sudan? Do you find any honest and sincerity in regards to their comments here? And how do you find that also, you see, they deliberately actually ignore Congo issue by discussing of Central African Republic without speaking of Congo, which is the main point or central point in Africa, in their so-called comments on pursuit for peaceful issues in these countries? And lastly, when you see what they support also in Haiti, when they say Haiti-led, they support Haiti-led resolutions, at the same time backing the UN, United Nations assistance in Haiti. Well, they know what the UN is trying to do in Haiti. What is your comments in regards to those?
Brics in South Africa is a regional and world power. South Africa is at the level of a mid-sized world power, by the way. How Brics is a geopolitical formation. And geopolitical formations have geopolitical interests. And where these geopolitical formations meet organizations, meet other geopolitical formations who are weaker than them, they will overrun these respective geopolitical formations. So is the African Union weak? Why? Yes or no? Why? Is it a problem of Africans? Is it a problem of interference? Is it a complicated mixture of both? Those are questions we need to answer ourselves. So China, Russia will not speak directly and clearly about Congo. Why will they not speak clearly and directly about Congo? They will not speak clearly and directly about Congo because they are part of the problem alongside Kenya, alongside Rwanda. Okay, everybody is participating in profiteering from the crisis in Eastern Congo. Now, why will they speak so clearly about the problem in Haiti? They will speak clearly about the problem in Haiti and condemn the Presidential Council because it is in their interest to weaken any sort of American-led interventions, and it is American-led but Kenyan puppeteered, or it seems to be Kenyan-led but it is American puppeteered intervention in Haiti, and this is clear. And it seems the Americans have given up on Haiti because they are no longer transferring funds to Kenya to carry out their quote-unquote dirty or cleaning work for them. So, of course, South Africa has a different view, China has a different view, and Russia has a different view. So probably this article on Haiti was driven by South Africa, who are resistant to Kenya's activities in Haiti. See, we are playing geopolitics with each other and each other's crisis. Now, a better way of doing this, in my opinion, would be to strengthen the African Union, and I don't care if you want to replace the African Union, but to have a very strong continental body which will instill military discipline on all these groups chaotically acting and pushing and pulling in the continent, so that we can learn how to share transboundary resources and learn how to resolve problems. But for now, Brics is carrying out its own geopolitical interests, and we must be aware.
Okay, thank you. Let me get to Brother Coco. I've said I'll go through the list. So yes, I see your hand and I respect that, and thank you for joining us. But let me go through the list and I'll reach to you, please. Okay, now I'll reach out to you. So, Ambassador Jasmine, it's you. Then after Ambassador Jasmine, I'll go to Sister Chisomo in my list.
Greetings, everyone.
Greetings, Ambassador.
I am not on that road where I would trade one slave master for another. Over the years, I didn't know much about Russia, except that behind Russia is the Caucasus Mountains, where the first white people came from to Britannia. You know, Britannia was covered, it was full of Black people, say Africans, or called Moors. Moors are Black, or Africans. They shaved those people and put them into clothes. And once they had done that, they were good with italic, we call it italic writing. They were good at that. So the Moors of Britannia gave them the job of writing their history. Over the years, they interbreed with the Moors, and then they took over Britannia, which today you call Britain. So I'm not into this trading one slave master for another. China was populated again by Africans. Now we don't see them. They call them the untouchables and placed on an island on the verge of by China. So right now, I don't really trust any of them. Kenya, the Caribbean, the diaspora, most of our papers that they call money is printed by the colonial masters and distributed back into our countries. So we don't have money. We have, whether it's shilling, whether it, well, birr is different, it's printed here. Shillings, dollars, you know, it's all printed by the colonials. It has no value. Neither do their dollar. But for some reason, they have the African continent buying and paying in dollars. I don't understand how it happened, but I guess it did. So for instance, if Kenya, for instance, is going to build a road and it's going to cost $1 million shillings to build that road, they are going to then pay in dollar, which means that they have to take more money in shillings in order to buy dollar. And it's all paper. It's not backed by gold. It's not backed by silver. It's just printed paper that they're tricking us with. And if we stop using it as a whole and get something else of our own that they don't have access to, we're better off. And when I say that, I'm referring to us Africans on the continent, as well as those in the diaspora. We have become so dependent on dollar, pounds, and euro that we won't even take money or whatever, which is ours. I see Lumi, the Swiften platform we actually use as well for our Lumi currency. You know, that came out, only people of African descent could have applied to have Lumi, and we've been using it the best we can. But again, you hear people say, well, can we change the Lumi into dollar? You know, when the Africa Free and Continental Trade was launched, January 2021, I think it was, there was also a currency, I think it's called Brics or something, that was launched with that.
Yes.
To be used. Whether they're using it today or not, or if they run back to the dollar, pounds, and euro, is another story. We have to find ways that we as an African nation, home and abroad, can do for ourselves and not depend or measure up with the colonials like we want to be like them. You know, we never had their pounds, shilling, dollars, or whatever in the time of our ancestors, but yet we managed. We had our own, and we moved cross borders, trade with one another, and we never went hungry. I don't even think we had starvation. But somewhere along the line, these movements of the so-called money, which comes from the hands of the colonials, is causing a problem with us that we don't know which way to turn. So on the issue of the Brics, I really don't trust the China, the Russia. There is no smoke without fire. I don't trust them. I think that as African people, we need to have our own. We need to look at all the things that our ancestors has put there for us, as well as the satellites and all of these things that they have taught us, and go back to it and stop looking at it as if it was in the old days or its history is there because they taught it to us. Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Okay, Ambassador, thank you very much for your comments in regards to this. And I will have Ambassador, of course, next week when she is discussing with us the unification of Africa and the diaspora, because she's, of course, Ambassador of the diaspora with the State of Africa diaspora. So she will also maybe be able to mention for us the efforts that she has been making and activeness and participation on how we break the border or break the barrier between the African Caribbean and diaspora and the African in the continent. And of course, Ambassador, you have a question in the chat. Please, I know you will be able also to mention the LUMI as some of the efforts you'll be putting forth towards that unification in your presentation next Saturday. So please pay attention to that so that we will have Ambassador coming in on next Saturday. Let me get to the next speaker in my list. Thank you, Ambassador, for that. So with Ambassador, she doesn't trust the China thing on this. Sister, am I going to Sister Chisomo? Sister Chisomo, you are on my list, and then I go to the king. I'm trying to follow up my list. So Chisomo, then the king.
Hello.
So please make it towards the text here in regards to the Brics and the Kazan declaration. Speak to that in maybe 2 to 3 minutes, and then I'll go to the other list. I'll come to everybody in this list. So just be patient. I'll try my best. Yes, Sister Chisomo.
Right. My argument remains the same. That if we are not united at national, domestic level, we've got nothing to offer at regional, continental, or international level. So what would then happen is we will rely on African Union to represent us. But what relationship do we have at domestic level with the Union for them to then represent us elsewhere? So for as long as we are working in isolation in the different countries in Africa, some are making progress, some are not, some regions are making progress, some are not. I don't see how all this will work. We'll still have the same problems like we're having with all the other international setups. So Brics remains the same. We will be dominated, we will be ruled, we will be controlled, because we really don't have much to offer for us to unite, because we're not united in our own countries. Look at what's happening in Kenya, look at what's happening in Malawi and all these other countries, Sudan, all these other countries we've mentioned. How do we then unify to then speak as one, operate as one, and have something to offer? So my argument is, let's sort ourselves at domestic, national level, otherwise we're not moving.
Okay, thank you. You raised a very important question and aspect here that if we are not united as a continent, then basically we will not be able to achieve any advantage in any of the states. In one of these declaration resolution, actually I saw Brics pushing for African Union to be part of the UN as an Africa Union, as an African body, be part of the UN. But it's so surprising that they don't demand the representation on their Brics as an African Union level or a continental level, but they demand the same in the UN. But in their Brics level, they still push for membership in regards to their so-called countries, but they don't push for the same AU or that regional or continental body level to be a member, so that you treat Africa as one body. But they push for the same. If you look at that resolution, if you've gone through it, there's where they're pushing for membership of AU to be part of the UN Security Council or the UN, something like that. So thank you very much, Sister Chisomo, for that.
And as you can see, Brics is selective as to who they include into membership. So even in Africa, they started with certain countries, and look at the countries that they're choosing, almost similar in nature and economically. So they will only choose certain countries to work with. The rest of us will never make it.
Thank you for that, Sister Chisomo. Thank you for sharing your thinking. And you're free to share your thinking here. Let's get to Brother the King Mauli, General Anunaki, and then Brother Kama Hachunde, in that order. Please take your 2 to 3 minutes to share your thinking with us. Brother the King.
Okay, thank you very much.
Please try to speak to the text here on their resolution and your general feeling.
Come again.
Please try to speak to the resolutions highlighted and your general feeling in regards to the so-called declaration.
Okay, so for me, I've always been of a view that Africa to unite entails a lot. It's not about only currency. Currency is very important, but culturally, how are we uniting ourselves? We have over 80 or 70%, if I'm correct, of all the continental companies around Africa being owned by foreigners. So if we should unite and if we have our own currency, how are we going to have the upper hand in terms of that currency? We still do not own the narrative or control the economic business nature of the whole continent. So how are we really pushing ourselves economically into business, owning our own resources and converting into finished products on our own land and our own continent before we actually sell it, rather than other companies being the one to own those narratives? That is where I am coming from.
Okay, thank you, Brother The King. Are you done?
Yes, I'm done. I don't want to go too much.
Okay. Thank you, The King. Let's get to General Nunaki. General Nunaki, please share your thinking in regards to these resolutions, being that you're from South Africa, who is, of course, a privileged member of Brics.
More like a burden. Yes, my Lord. Blessed, blessed. Give thanks, Son of the Lake, and to everyone. Okay. Now, I agree with everyone what they are saying, but my approach is straightforward. It's based on the aspect of Elder Kwame Nkrumah on the Joint African Military Command. So, without a Joint African Military Command, whatever we say or do, whatever will be destroyed by these terrorists, because these terrorists are funded by the imperialists to destabilize any African-built institutes. So what's happening in the Sahel Alliance is a perfect example that what we must be doing as Africans. We need to be able to defend our properties. We need to be able to defend our neighborhoods. We need to be able to defend our families from terrorists, whatever elements that are trying, killing, stifling, whatever development of Africans. So my standpoint in this aspect is there. Hence now we have the African Corps, which is the Russian military in Africa. So Russia has sent, I think there's about like more than 2,000 soldiers of Russia now in the African soil. So basically with these channels, also with Brics, we go along with Brics for now because Brics has better deals with the West. And then up until we Africans get on our feet, then we can ditch Brics because at the end of the day, only Africa will fix their efforts. No Asians, no whites. Give thanks, my brother.
Give thanks, comrade. I'm seeing majority of people are trying to avoid either to speak directly to the text, but I also appreciate the comments you're putting forth because you also highlight the issue of military support. And I see here, Brics is talking about the recognize and either support the effort by United Nations in promoting peace process in South Sudan. I don't know if really UN has been promoting any peace process in Africa from my thinking. And basically, I feel that they've been sponsoring something else. But yeah, it's them speaking this. And that's how I'm trying to read within the lines on their comments. But let's get to Kama Tashunde. Being of this background a bit in terms of security, peace, and military things, please share with us your comments or your thinking in regards to these resolutions, and particularly where they talk of combating violence and anything else. And generally, what you feel? Comrade Kama?
Thank you so much. I think like others have said, it's still a very volatile and complicated situation. Yeah, because, we are depending on other powers to lead us to find solutions to our own problem. Now, I don't see how possible that China and Russia actually are doing everything for free. There could be actually a few things that we're not seeing, which are behind the scenes, that they are pushing so that they benefit out of Africa. If not, maybe they're using us to fight their continued Cold War with the West. But in the circumstances, Brics is a better evil for us than the West, in my view. because of what we have gone through with the West. At least the Brics, since some of the African countries are part of the Brics, it's a better evil. Rumor has it, what I feel could just be, could be what can work soon. Maybe it's just a payment system, because the rumors that I have, the grapevine, is that they want to avoid to have a currency that is controlled by any other BRICS country, but use cryptocurrency, because cryptocurrency, you know, it will have no country that will own it. Maybe that way it will even help us Africans, that, you know, even our debt situation, if we acquire much of that crypto, because it will be so, it's a uniform value, you know, across the members. But to say that we are very safe with Russia and China, I don't think so, because they might have a hidden agenda, but it's a better evil for now. That's the little I can comment, I think.
Thank you. So you call it silent poison.
Come again?
You call it silent poison. It's at least a slow poison. But thank you for your comments. You are free, actually, as I've said, to share your thinking. In my list, I'll get to, I see Brother Kwame Gonza, then it's our window. Brother Kwame Gonza, welcome. It's a pleasure to see you around. I know you've interacted with this text not once in your analysis of this meeting and declaration. So please feel free to share with us your thinking. Brother Kwame Gonza? Brother Gonza?
Thank you, Chair. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, comrade. It's a pleasure to see you around. It's a long time.
Thank you very much. I think I did an analysis on this situation when the Ukraine war started way back in, I think it was 2001. Yeah, and I did that, I think, to the CSG class. But of course, it's interesting to see that Brics mentions Africa, which is, of course, inevitable, considering the fact that we are in the global village. And this being in the global village, of course, Nkrumah saw it a long time ago, and he started talking about it. He saw the rise of the United States. He saw how things were shaping, how nations were, you know, positioning themselves. And so he saw that Africa could not survive in this kind of new world order where a very powerful country like the United States, huge, you know, had risen, very rich. He did not see how Africa could survive disintegrated. And so, of course, most of the things later on which he predicted happened. And that's what we are seeing, whether it is the Ethiopia and Somaliland, even this he gave it in his speech. There should not be any border between Ethiopia and Somaliland. I think in the 1963 speech, that's when he gave that speech. He was seeing all these conflicts that would arise later on. But at the end of the day, regardless of what Brics mentions, Brics is not going to be the one that's going to come and struggle for Africa. I mean, they can only do so much, even in their capacity. They can aid, but they cannot fight for you. You know, the struggle that you are supposed to, you know, to carry out even yourself. And if they did even fight for you, even you yourself, you would not be proud. So this is one thing which I want us to clearly understand in this situation that we are facing in. We don't have any option but to fight it out. We have, you know, around 2 stages of about 3 stages, all right, of fighting that we have to do, fighting against imperialism, which is the Europeans and the United States on one side, which we know that is the declared enemy of the African people for the last 600 years. And then we have a war to fight for the continent itself between us and that means fighting against the representatives, because they have representatives, as you are seeing the continent, the pegging of the continental resources on the United States dollar and all these is because they have representatives on the continent. So we have to fight against these. And of course, at the end of the day, which many people don't want to hear, which I've been saying, numerously, even the revolutionaries themselves, it could be between me and Pidgin, or it could be between me and brother Kwame, or it could be between me and a brother in South Africa. In the process of us struggling to unify the continent, there may be a war to break out there also. So we are in a very difficult situation. But at the end of the day, we have to understand that we have to fight it out. Brics can only do so much regardless of what declarations are made over there. And I even find the remarks which were made by, President Cyril Ramaphosa that the Brics countries should come and invest in Africa and help Africa to industrialize and all this. On the international platform, they are good to make those comments, but I find that these comments are very misguided, and this strategy is very misguided on his part. The work is supposed to be done on the African continent. He's supposed to intensify the struggle of building the basic infrastructure on the African continent. Because if we talk about the African Continental Free Trade Area without the basic infrastructure, then is complete, sorry to say, but it's complete nonsense. There's no way you're going to trade if you don't have a transport infrastructure to move goods from South Africa to Algeria. You don't have infrastructure to move goods from Kenya all the way to Nigeria or Cameroon or Ghana or Senegal. You don't have transport infrastructure there. And of course, you have planes, but you cannot use airplanes because airplanes will skyrocket the prices of goods. So these are the realities that have to be solved first, and they have to be solved at home. These basic infrastructure, it cannot be built by external people. There's sectors that are supposed to lay the ground: energy, transportation, a railway platform for the continent, energy. All countries on the continent are facing energy problems. Yesterday I was here and the power went off here in Ghana for almost 12 hours. It came back in the night. The place is very hot. South Africa has been experiencing energy problems. So you can see that we have problems with the energy. Transport is not fixed. Communication is not fixed. And these are the bases for business, for markets,
Okay.
for Africa Continental Free Trade. So with this, I believe that the work has to be done within, let me finish very quickly. I believe that the work has to be done within ourselves, and for the African Continental Unity Party, of course, it has started. We are already, carrying out the struggle in Ghana of organizing, and there has to be a strategy of all revolutionaries across the continent. And the goal has to be the unification, because if we miss the unification again, like how they missed in 1963, then we are in for a very, very tough ride going forward, because the United States and Europe are looking to rebuild to compete with China. There's nowhere they are going to exploit resources apart from Africa if we don't get our act together. So all revolutionaries, they have to fight all over the continent with their mind, with this in their mind, that we are not fighting to retain these territories, but rather to unify them into a continental government. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Brother Gonza. And thank you for the efforts also you're making in regards to this struggle for the unification of the continent. I do appreciate, and we do appreciate your work as well. Thank you, comrade. Let me get to Sir Windhoek. Sir Windhoek, please share your thinking in regards to these resolutions.
Greetings to everybody.
Greetings, comrade.
Like Kwame Gonza has just said, everybody or anybody else will help us so much as we are helping ourselves. Therefore, everyone must carry their own water bottles. And for this to happen, we really need to the unification agenda that we have should really be pushed hard. Like Resolution 38 is saying, African solutions for African problems. You see, in BRICS, we are joining as individual countries, and that will not help us either. Our group is one that is pushing for African, one of those pushing for African unification, should maybe also push for African unity, now African Union, to push their members to go for BRICS membership, so that in the end, we would even change BRICS to BRICA, so that in the end, we will change our individual membership to just one African membership, and we'll even change the formation from BRICS to BRICA. It is only then that we will have enough strength to become equals in the formation of the BRICS. And only then will countries like China and Russia not be selective in their action against countries like the Congos, like the absence of their actions in the Congo. I think it will be mitigated through that. And the fact of a common currency is also going to help us become equals in this equation of the BRICS. So I feel very strong as a group, and as well write to the African Union and try to pressurize them by resolution to command or equally force all the members of Africa to join the BRICS formation. And like that, I don't need to reiterate, by then we will maybe have acquired the necessary strength to be equals and to solve our African solution in our African way with the support of the whole BRICS, and not only to rely on Russia and China. This should be done with a backdrop that for now, BRICS is the devil, is a better devil than any other devil. I will leave it there.
Thank you, brother. And who are we as Africans in the devil's scheme?
Come again?
And who are we or where are we in the so-called lesser devils and devil's scheme?
Who are we and where are we?
Yes, in the devil's or the lesser devil scheme.
I don't understand.
We are the victims.
Yeah, you say, of course, brother, that Brics is the lesser devil. So we are meant, or we are in a position to choose for a lesser devil. Then who are we? Are we the devils, or are we the holy ones who want to choose the lesser devils in this circumstance? And is it mandatory or condition on us that we must choose a lesser devil? Of course, quotes have been made before, and I think Nkrumah said it, if I'm wrong, that we never look east or west, we look forward. But now we are preceded by the East, who speaks about Africa, and the West, who also speaks about Africa, but using different words and different terms. But the bottom line, where I feel the intentions might be the same. So where are we, or who are we in this scheme? Sorry, Doc, is not necessary you answer it if you don't have the answer for now, but you can try.
I think we are nowhere in the scheme.
Okay.
Because, you know, the West has been there. They never had the interest of Africa. Their only objective is to loot our natural resources for the development of their own.
Okay. Thank you.
BRICS are like China and Russia. At least they have got a track record of having supported Africa in their decolonization. So with that backdrop, one would hope they have got a better interest, African interest, than anybody else that we have tried, like the West.
Okay, thank you. I'll go to Sister Tapua, and then Brother Nkrumah, I'll allow you to come in. But I feel that after Sister Tapua, let me go to Sister Mary, and then I allow you to come in, based on the orders of also how long some members have stayed in the meeting. And I hope everybody will speak. So let me get to Sister Tapua and then Sister Mayra. Then I'll get to you, Brother Nkrumah, after that. Sister Tapua?
Hello, everyone. I'm
Hello.
just trying to move to a place where I can possibly sustain my reception. But I basically agree with a lot of the things that have been mentioned by the various comrades who have spoken so far. I think the points I would like to raise are that, particularly when we're talking about African solutions to African problems, I agree with Brother Carrington, who looked at the fact that we need to analyze what the African problems are. How are we so confident that Brics itself is not a problem to the African, to the African setup? The fact that somebody is friendly at one point, supports you at one point, at their convenience, should not put us in a loud position to think that they're doing us a favor. It's not a charity. We're just part of the pawn here. And what I would like us to... Hello? Hello? Hello?
Funga show. Basi Lisa kuna ngumu, nadhani uchukue ngumu kwa Lisa. Hizo za duka. Unataka tu ngumu, basi ngumu. Unataka hizo?
I think we're having hello?
Yes, brother, sorry. Hello, yes, Sister Tapua, please proceed, sorry.
All right, okay.
Is the interference from the host?
Oh, all right. Okay. No, I was just saying that we need to watch out what the source of the African problems are, because within the continent itself, we need to act as one. Because my immediate reaction after noticing what was happening with Brics was kind of panic, because I could see the divide and rule, and I could see other African countries being left out. And it was not so much as we should join Brics. It was we should be able to stand up for ourselves first, stand up as a unit first, before we start joining other organizations. And then there was something that was going on around the internet about the Brics currency. And I looked at the currency and the different languages that were being used for, acknowledging the currency, some wording written on the currency. And for South Africa, it was written in Afrikaans. And I went, wow. Because, it's an indication of some of the problems that we have on the continent. And I also want to agree with people who were saying we need to consider the lack of trust that Brics has of the African Union by not inviting the African Union. But then on the other hand, I think the African Union, as we've observed before, could also be part of the problem that we have as Africa, especially when they look at the 4 countries in the Sahel as a problem. And then the use of the word terrorist. I am Zimbabwean, and during the liberation struggle, we were called terrorists. So each time I hear the word terrorist and I look at people who are called terrorists, for me, there's actually a problem with that, So when we are saying we're trying to support different countries, or the African Union is trying to reduce terrorism and so on, what do we mean by that? What is actually meant to happen? So I think that in order for us to advance as Africa, we need to sort out African problems amongst ourselves, like the statement says, but we need to be able to not be forced to choose the better devil. Because why should we choose any devil? We need to be able to stand up for ourselves and look at ourselves and strengthen ourselves as an African continent, as an African country, before we go ahead and maybe stand up with people. And whoever thinks that some of the African countries would like to ditch Brics, I think there was a suggestion that at some point we could ditch Brics. But this is an advantage game. The countries that are in Brics feel proud, African countries that are in Brics feel proud to be part of Brics. And if you're going to pull them out, would they like to? If they were able to go into Brics despite other Africans being left out, what do we think would happen? So I think we need to work on ourselves. We need to find a way of strengthening the African Union so that it represents the people and not leadership. And possibly that's the way out for us. I think I will stop here because I don't think we should be in Brics.
Thank you.
I don't even think we should be in there. Thank you.
Thank you, Sister Tapua, for your, of course, your position. Yes, you raise serious issues on the so-called gangs. As of course, Brics join, I think there has been conflict of whether the people in Haiti or the Babacan and Steam are gang or gang leaders, or who are they? And the definition depends on how you want to look at it. And therefore, their statement of referring to them as gangs and attacks and gang attacks basically also is something that must be picked very clearly as they try to share their so-called concerns in regards to this. So yes, that's something that we could not miss. So their language is almost the same with the language of the West in regards to how they see these things in those terms of those who are fighting. So thank you very much also for bringing that aspect clearly. And also for what you've raised. Of course, your concerns and your fear why we should be in Brics is also another key question. But I think one element that you've raised that I always ask myself, I think interdependentness is a collision between two independent states. In this case, Africa hasn't reached a status of being independent. Even the so-called countries that are joining Brics in the so-called their countries, they're still not totally independent. But they're joining almost independent states like Russia and China, who are independent on their own. And while some of us are interdependent, or some of us are actually still in their puppetry. And then you want to call that collision to be of equals. It's never of equals. And I think the only thing that can equate, because even African Union has raised the issue, is another thing to be discussed. Their source of economic funding, the leaders who sit there, and all about it, even if we were to wish that AU was to represent us in BRIC, or even in the UN as proposed, what could have been the outcome of that? So let me get to Sister Mayra and Brother Nkrumah. Then my list will be to Brother Coco. Then I'll be going to Sister Shaza. In that order, and then there's one person left down here who will be SOM and Yashon. So please maybe take 2 to 3 minutes so that I can reach out to everybody else. Sister Mayra?
Thank you, Brother PJ. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, but from a distance.
Okay, I'll try to be louder. So what I'm going to say is going to echo a lot of what has already been said. Brother Pigeon pointed out the contradictions because the first sentence says African solutions for African problems, and then they talk about the UN. But we all know that the UN is an imperialist arm that does the work for the Western countries. And then Brother Carrington said something about the Russians mentioned Haiti because they can use that to hit back at the states. And that's are being used as a political football, between all these world powers. And then personally, I'm of thinking that the AU is funded by the imperialists anyway. So for me, this text is not very exciting. I concur with all my comrades who said our solutions have to be by us, and that it is us that have to do our own fighting. No one from the outside is going to come in and liberate us, not even Brics. And even if we have to join Brics, like Sister Tapua said, we must go in with some leverage, and at the moment we don't. So again, but I think it's not anything new really. And I think that it doesn't change the fact that we still have to keep on fighting for ourselves to create the world that we want to see in the diaspora and on the continent. Thank you.
Thank you, Sister Mera. Brother Nkrumah.
Yes, good day, everyone. I hope everyone is hearing me.
Yes, we can hear you.
Right. What I want to point out is that Africa is not the problem per se, and that the problem exists with Black people. It is Black people that need to get together. Of course, we need to regain control over our lands and our continent, which is the African continent. But we need to deal with the problems that Black people have, because there are whites that live in Africa, and you don't see them begging on the streets. There are Chinese that live in Africa, you don't see them begging on the streets. Even Indians who are also Black. Well, I'm not too sure whether you see Indians begging on the street or not, but I'm sure about whites and Chinese and Arabs and other people. So the problem is with Black people and the way we think. All right? And our main problem is that we lack knowledge of ourselves. We look up to these powers in the world, and we think that we need to follow their ways. But if you check it out very carefully, all these powers are failed states. America is a failed state. Europe, failed states. They are the ones that are leading the world off a precipice. And that is why today we are on the brink of nuclear war. I hope everybody is following what I'm saying, right? So, we do need, we have a tendency to look back at our ancient culture. For example, Kemet, ancient Egypt, is a civilization that lasted for over 103,000 years. And there's evidence of that. And, we like to boast about the great civilizations that we had. However, for us to succeed like how our ancestors succeeded, we need to live like how they lived. And right now, we are living another man's dream. We are following his worldview and way of solving problems. We are not going to solve problems with our opinions, which is what I've heard here today. Opinions and our logic and our intellect. And that lack of knowledge of self is that you need to know your spiritual anatomy, because if you did, you will understand that opinions, logic, and intellect come very low on the tree of life, just like how in your body has an anatomy and you have a brain and you have toes. Well, your opinions, logic, and intellect are like your toes. So basically, the entire world, well, let's not say that there are always exceptions, but in general, the entire world is thinking with their toes, and that's why we have problems. People think with their emotions. We make decisions with our emotions, and we shouldn't be doing that. Because if you knew your spiritual anatomy, you would know that there's a part of your spirit that knows the solution to all problems in life. but we're not using it, and we don't want to go back there. But that's the kind of knowledge that allowed us to have civilization for over 103,000 years. And we've fought off all sorts of barbarians. For long over 10,000 years, we were keeping off these white barbarians coming up from the northern tundras, because north is down really. And it was just their time in the sun why they were able to take over. But we have to use our methods, Black people methods. As I said, the problem is with Black people. Our minds are enslaved in general, of course. And that is what we need to deal with. So we need to be able to access our wisdom faculty, because you're not going to make it through a strange forest without a guide. And if your guide is opinions and your logic and your intellect, which is a hit or miss thing, then we're going to remain slaves to other people for the rest of our lives if we don't get wiped off the planet. So we need to access our ancestral wisdom and learn how to use it. That is our weapon. Okay, I'm not saying we have to deal with everything, politics, whatever we have, the education system, but they are all parts of your spiritual anatomy. And we need wisdom to guide us to deal with it. That's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. So let's get to, we only have 3 people who haven't spoken in my list. So let's get to Sister Shaza, SOM Consultancy. But before SOM, we go to Son Tafari, then SOM Consultancy. Let's start with Sister Shaza. Please share your thinking in regards to this text and this resolution by the Brics. Sister Shaza. Sister Shaza. Okay. Let's get to Yashon Tafari. Please feel free to share your thinking with us. Oh, Brother Coco, was I skipping you? Sorry, before we go to Yashon. Yes, Brother Coco, please come in. Sorry for that. So sorry. It's not intentional. It's not intentional.
I thought you were doing it intentionally, brother. You wanted me to, you were punishing me for coming in late.
It's not intentional. Very sorry.
But that's all right. Don't worry about it. The benefit of coming in late sometimes is that everyone has put their points forward. And most of these points which have been presented are really strong points. And I think they all point to one thing, that we are helpless. We find ourselves helpless. We are led by people who don't want to listen to what we want or what is for our own interests. Looks like someone is leading us, but they are leading us for their own interests. That's where the problem is as Africans. We can sit here, eulogize, strategize, and talk about lots of things, but as long as we don't have power to change things around, there's nothing much we can do. We have to recognize that.
Okay.
So
where is this power, Brother Coco?
The power sits with our puppet leaders at the moment. The power sits with our puppet leaders. So it's either whether we are going to sit by and let them lead the way when they are blinds. So the blinds are going to lead us. I don't know where these blinds are going to lead us. That is my worry, my biggest worry. And I think lots of speakers today have covered that we are not doing things the way we should be doing for our own interests as Africans. We are doing things for the interests of others. So let me say, the one thing which I recognize in their declaration there is the recognition that Sudan and the Congo or the Sahel, the African problems are not being reported worldwide. They are being misreported or underreported or even unreported completely. So for me, I'm happy that someone is suddenly saying, yes, there is a problem happening. So the question is, who is behind these problems? All right. And the problems which we have as Africans are like, they're talking about capitalism. You know, capitalism is the system which they are saying we are going to use as Africans under AFC, CFTA, or whatever it is. One of our speakers said the businesses that we have are not even Africans. We don't have our own businesses. It's foreign businesses which own lots of business in Africa right now. So even the African Continental Free Trade Area, which we are doing for someone else, from somewhere. I appreciate that we want economy to drive, growth to drive the unity forward, but we need to recognize that risk. Then there is a governance model. We have democracy. We are still using the same Western system, and we are saying we are going to use African solutions for African problems. To me, that's not an African solution. It's another man's problem, or another man's look like solution, but it's not the solution. Then I see that AU is being mentioned a lot, but who runs
Brother,
the AU?
I'm adding you 1 more minute, Brother Coco, please.
Yes, who funds the AU? Who funds the AU? Have we asked about that? And again, most of our leaders, they don't even have trust in the AU. The AU should have a lot of power to do lots of things, but it's not. So whoever is saying the AU can do what the AU cannot, the AU cannot do anything without our puppet leaders granting them that power to do stuff. Then there is a question of education. The education we have, the colonial education we have, is that what we are going to use to solve Africa's problems? Please forget about it. Do we know about ourselves? Do we know how we were enslaved or colonized or even recolonized again? We are now in the middle of another second Cold War happening between the Brics and the old order in the West, and we are not ready. They are going to use us again to divide us. All right. Thank you.
Okay. So you are proposing the NAM, the non-aligned movement. We need to go back to our non-aligned movement, but also work on ourselves. Yes, I also recognize the aspect that they believe on the principle of African ownership. If they truly commit to that, then they should help us in action, or they should show it in action on African ownership, not China owning some resources from Congo. Let me get to Sister Comrade Tefari, Yashan. Please, Comrade, 1 minute or two for you, if you are able to speak. Yashon Tafari, please. And then I'll go to SOM Consultancy. Yes, Comrade.
Yes, global greetings.
Greetings, Comrade.
It's my first time on the platform. I must say I feel encouraged knowing that we have, a group such as this, which is, seeking to put forward such issues and, bringing such issues to the table. First up, in regards to the topic for discussion, I myself, I'm seeking to learn much more about, the Brics and what the other objectives may be. I I must agree with some of the other callers, some of the other speakers who would have suggested that, it might be as they would say, the lesser of the two evils, so to speak, at this juncture, because I also agree with a lot of the other presenters that, at this point there's a lot that we need to do for us as a people. A lot has been done. We have to admit the reality that a lot has been done in terms of psychological brain bleaching. I can't call it washing because, if something is washed, it might maintain its color still, but I think a lot of our brains has been bleached totally. And so there's a lot of efforts were put into that brain bleaching as well. And so we can't, as we look at these things, not recognize that a lot was done in an effort to do that and still is being done to continue this. And so sometimes we have to recognize that we would have lacked a bit of that, especially for us who were basically in the Caribbean sector, who don't have any direct connection with our roots. A lot has been done to keep us ignorant of such facts. I love the fact that they talk about African problems should be solved by Africans. That is the thinking that we should have. However, when I look at that, at this point, we're not even at the level where we recognize that we need to break the borders down, where we shouldn't have to have visas and so to travel to another African territory. We still have these internal issues. We still have the issue that those who maybe, were colonized by France and maybe speak French feel like they have a better, status than those who may still speak the African, languages and so on. So we still have a lot of these little social issues. We don't have a currency. I think the fact that they spoke to the African Union gives me the recognition that they realize that instead of coming as individual countries, we need to have a similar body. So even if one may argue that the African Union is not that union at this point, even if it's the OAU or some other similar organization that could represent us as a bloc, would be much more effective in international recognition. And we really need that one military as well, that one military force that represents the whole of Africa.
Thank you, brother. We are short of time.
No problem.
I'll give 1 minute to SOM consultancy because we are supposed to end in the next 1, maximum 2 minutes. So SOM consultancy, please go ahead.
It's a shame that I have to use 1 minute, but the first thing I want to say, this is my first time of joining, and I want to say thank you to Sister Ida. She invited me to the group. So I would have asked for more time, but anyway, I think the first thing I want to say, I just want to say some key points. I love this conversation that we are having, and I know somebody was saying that this is just our opinion, but I think our opinion, what it does is that it raises our consciousness. And it's important as Africans that our consciousness becomes awakened. So I want us to do 2 things from this awakeness of our consciousness, that we create a newsletter so that the key points from this conversation, you can put it in a newsletter and we can circulate it among ourselves. And what that does is that it continues to raise the consciousness of ourselves as Africans. And this opinion can reach out to other people. The second thing I hope we can do is that we should start sending letters to the African OAU, to send letters to them, because either we agree or not, it stands as a body for our continent. So we send letters to them, and we're hoping that even if we use the next 2-3 years, continue to send those letters, our voice might be heard one day. So those are the 2 things I would like us to introduce into this conversation. And we can call the newsletter, Awakening Consciousness of Africans. So those are the 2 things I hope we can be done. Then the first thing I want to contribute is that until us as a continent, the day we realize that we don't need anyone, that is the first thing that will save us. And until we identify our common problem as African continents, and the common problem is division. We all see that is a common problem between us. We are being divided in different ways. Everybody wants a piece of us. And the reason everybody wants a piece of us is that we, as African continent, are the missing piece. Without us, no nation can stand. Now, if you look at in terms of the universe, when you talk about power, resources, as a continent, we own 40% of the resources of the universe. So that means no matter how they come together, they can't beat us, because 40% of that resources stays with us. But because we don't stand together, it's difficult for us to realize how powerful we are.
Okay, sister.
So that's just my contribution anyway. I hope next time I can, I can still join and contribute more. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, sister. I'm sorry for keeping you waiting for that long, but as usual, we try to keep our time as well. Yes, the two comments you raised, we are working on them. And if you're interested to join that, please, I'll be able to get your contact either from Sister Ida. We are actually preparing us reforming our class, because see, our class deals with philosophy on Thursdays and this topic called issues on Africa unification. So we are working on aspect of having what you call the magazine or the newsletter that's actually called The Balance. As us from the philosophical angle, we look at the balance of forces at play for the unification and against the unification. So we actually be working on that. Some of our reforms will be including monthly podcasts, either newsletters or physical group studies and so many other things. So we are trying to see how we can revive and move forward with this. And we will be appreciative of this, what you are actually proposing. So thank you very much for that. And every Saturday we have a conversation. To all comrades who have joined us, every Saturday we have a conversation. And next Saturday we'll be looking at Saturdays specifically for the unification of either Black people of Africa. And next Saturday we'll be looking at the conversation between the Africans in diaspora and the Africans in the continent. What are the frameworks, the activities, the achievements, and the struggles towards uniting us as a people? And that will be actually presented by one of our sisters, Sister Jasmine, Ambassador Jasmine of the State of Africa Diaspora. And yes, as I wind up to this, I'll say that there are so many things that have been put here, but to me, I feel that they are just lip service and lip talks. No matter how much we can take them, no matter how actually we can look at them, they are all lip service. Yes, they contradict themselves in so many sentences. In one way, you call or you condone the atrocity in Sudan, and in another way, in the same sentence, you talk about issues about the EU being blocked in Sudan. Well, you know that the EU diplomat being blocked in Sudan is part of the problem of Sudan. So you condemn Sudan and talk about also condemning the EU things, which means you put two things in the same context. And you go ahead of touching on issues of African solution for African problem, and at the same time, you bring in the UN in the conversation. So basically, as it is, it's very clear from the majority of the speakers who have spoken today, and that's why I wanted everybody to share their opinion, is majority from the speakers who spoke today is that they're not feeling any satisfaction on any of the resolution put in this paper. And if they feel it, they don't trust it. It's just a matter that some will choose the Brics because they're lesser evil, but they do not remove evil out of it. And is it that we are in a condition that we must not choose lesser evil as a people? So this is part of the conversation we must need to have. As Brother Kwame said, of course, we'll be putting letters. We've been writing letters to various reaction of issues as a class, from our philosophical angle to Kenyan government and many government. And out of this conversation, we'll be writing a draft letter to respond to these key resolutions that will be circulating. And Brother Kwame has mentioned that, and those who are interested will be part of this. And we want to be part of this conversation to critically analyze each of the texts that have been put here and give our response in regards to how we feel as a people. So once again, comrades, it's almost 6 minutes past our time. Thank you very much for your attendance. And next Thursday, we are going on with our conversation on philosophy class. So feel most welcome to our conversation on philosophy, which takes place every Thursday. We have philosophical and ideological class called Consciousness Study Group. Every Thursday, I know the time now will be changing in the UK. I think it'll be going back to 6 p.m. Every Thursday, we'll be meeting for our philosophical class, and every Saturday, we'll be meeting for African unification. So thank you very much, comrades, for your attendance, and please have a lovely evening or a peaceful evening wherever you are.
Thank you. Good night, everyone. Night, night.
Thank you. Good night, everyone.